What is up? Good morning and welcome to Monday's Hangxiety. I am your host, Ryan Weisse. This is Club Fantasy's weekly show where we recap all of Sunday's action. We help you decide when it's time to panic and when it is time to chill the fuck out. And if you're a loyal follower, we let you know whether or not you're going to riot or not. What's up, Joel? With me, as always, Josh Hudson, the founder of Club Fantasy, co-host of this show. No Eagles game to be completely hungover from. How you feeling today, Josh?
Only a little hungover, just because, I have friends of mine that are Packers fans, and, they did me a favor, so thank you.
They certainly did.
I'm tired of all these Cowboys fans chirping, oh, y'all haven't played anybody, blah, blah, blah. Bitch, the Packers fucking suck this year, and y'all couldn't even beat them. Like, seriously?
The Cowboys implosion and the Buffalo Bills, which we're going to talk a ton about that game in a bit. The Buffalo Bills being third in the AFC East is just some weirdness. Yeah, some weirdness to come out of Sunday. So let's quickly recap the games. We'll get into some of the segments so Joel doesn't have to riot. You know he's not going to be first, Joel, because first we have to talk about all the games. Way back on Thursday night, Panthers handled business against the Falcons 25-15. Wasn't a pretty game. PJ Walker did leave the game with a sprained ankle, looking like Baker Mayfield may start again. Tampa Bay beats Seattle in Germany 21-16. Leonard Fournette left the game with a hip injury. The Lions sneak by the Bears 31-30. Khalil Herbert also left this game with a hip injury. Josh and I have been talking a lot about this Bears thing before the show started, that the Bears are getting elite quarterback play and improving their draft position. This could not go better for them right now. Dolphins just demolished the Browns 39-17. I don't know how you come out of a bye week as flat as Cleveland did. Titans beat the Broncos 17-10. Jerry Jeudy gets carted off with an ankle injury. They are saying it is not an Achilles injury. Josh and I would love if we could get the news that Nathaniel Hackett was fired during the show today, just like we did with Frank Wright last week. The Vikings over the Bills in what has to be the game of the year, the game of the last couple of years, 33-30. We're going to talk more about that one later. Giants beat the Texans 24-16, so they keep their dominance going. The Steelers surprised the Saints, probably the most shocking game of the week, 20-10. The Colts are attempting to right the ship with an offensive lineman as a head coach, 25-20 over the Raiders. The Cardinals win the backup quarterback battle, 27-17 over the Rams, but this was a rough one for fantasy managers. Zach Ertz hurt his knee. He was spotted in a brace after the game. Cooper Kupp goes down with an ankle injury. Sean McVay said it did not look good. It does not sound good. Losing Cooper Kupp would be devastating for fantasy managers right now. As Josh alluded to, the Packers stunned the Cowboys 31-28, and the 49ers outlived the Los Angeles Chargers 22-16. Gerald Everett did leave this game with a groin injury. No Eagles game to talk about, but Josh, you have some feelings about everything else that's going on with up with the Birds. So
I want to highlight the Saints here because it's very comedic to me that the Saints or the Eagles sitting here at 8-0, potentially 9-0 after tonight, best record in the NFL as of right now, pick 32 in the NFL draft. And oh, by the way, we also have the number 4 overall pick because the Saints don't know how to manage their fucking draft position. This is what typical, like in Dynasty, you see this all the time, like teams trade off a bunch of draft picks, put themselves in an all-in win position. Yep, prime example, Ryan. And then they realize, or they forget to realize, oh, wait, my quarterback fucking sucks. Or, oh shit, I'm relying on guys that are a little too old and get hurt more often than not. This is the Saints to a T.
Yeah.
Michael Thomas has not played a full season in 3 fucking years. He's been a shell of himself. Like, we got a couple tease games in the beginning of the year before he hurt his ankle.
He was
still not convinced.
Good in those games.
Still not convinced he's fully hurt hurt. But Jarvis Landry's been out and he was all excited about coming back and playing where he went to college and all this stuff. They traded a first-round pick to move up to get Marcus Davenport in the first round a few years back. That has not worked out for them.
Nope.
They traded a first-round pick to move up like 6 spots with the Eagles before the draft even happened.
Yeah, so it's not like they did this to get Chris Olave. Chris Olave fell to them.
Yeah. And it's like, what? It's just some of these moves that Mickey Loomis has made as GM make zero fucking sense. And now they're in a position to where they could try to rebuild their team, but they can't.
Yep.
And you're going to start to see this too with the Los Angeles Rams, for as much as they're trading away
100%.
all of their picks. And look at their situation now. This team has been awful.
As a fantasy manager who's put myself into that exact position, it really drains you because, like, I even try to send out trades to just try to build back draft picks, and nobody's willing to move with me. So I now know that not only do I suck this year, not only am I going to suck next year, but it's probably going to take one more year. So you have to try to find something to latch onto. And in the league that we're probably both referring to, the Ballers and Friends League, I thought my something was going to be Devonta Smith, and he just hasn't done anything. I sent out an offer this week to Julia, trying to turn Travis Kelce into Dallas Goedert in a 1, thinking she might want to make a run. She turns me down. I am happy to say that Travis Kelce is probably going to give her a loss this week. So you should have took that trade, Julia Papworth. What are you doing? But I will say
she's also in a rebuild mindset, though. That's
she's in a playoff hunt rebuild mindset. But I guess right now everybody just sees our buddy Michael Lou running away with the league, and nobody wants to really make any deals.
Betts too. Betts is undefeated.
Betts is doing great in that league. You're absolutely right. So yeah, I don't, like I said, nobody cares about your fantasy league. But as a fantasy manager, the mindset I'll tell you is, especially as someone who lives in the win now mode, it's hard because I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do for these next 3 seasons. It's just going to be bad because nobody wants my players and I don't have any draft picks to fix this. So it's rough.
And you know what? Kudos, because I'm all about trying to get Will Anderson in Philly. So
yeah,
let's go, baby.
I was going to say, what a position. And we talked about this earlier in the season on this show, or the Wednesday show, is what a position the Eagles are in to simultaneously find out that Jalen Hurts is your guy, and now you still have this high draft pick. So.
He's on pace for almost 5,000 total yards.
Yeah.
Between passing and rushing. Like, that is wild to me.
I love seeing kids come into their own, and I think it's just been a great story. Obviously, you as an Eagles fan, and I mean, I'm happy to see the Eagles win. I'm not nearly the fan that you or Kira are. But I love seeing kids come into their own where they like really have to like outlive this adversity. And we saw it with Lamar Jackson, and we're just seeing it again with Jalen Hurts. And we hopefully are seeing it with Justin Fields. It's been very cool to watch these things happen, but Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson had the MVP season, but that's not going to touch what it looks like Jalen Hurts might be able to do for the Eagles this season. So
it's been a lot of fun to watch, and his growth as a passer has been next level.
Yeah, so kudos to the Saints for helping the undefeated Eagles be even better. Josh, I just saw we actually had an injury section this week, so I'm going to let you do the injury section. So Josh added the unnecessary shot of Ruppelmans. You're waking up in pain, so Josh has added an injury segment. I touched on some of these, but Josh, you filled this in, so have at it, buddy.
Yeah, you touched on a few of them. PJ Walker, high ankle sprain in the Thursday game. They've already announced that Baker Mayfield will start this week for the Panthers. You mentioned Fournette with the hip injury. Obviously, Cooper Kupp. That's probably the biggest one of the weekend. The ankle injury doesn't sound great. I think the initial timetable was 4 to 6 weeks, but if it's more severe, we could be like, there's going to be a lot of fantasy managers whose seasons are going to go like this. Because
there's no incentive to bring Cooper Kupp back this season.
There isn't. There really is not at all, because this team is not going anywhere. But they don't have their first round pick, so it's not even like they're helping themselves by losing. So it's like we need to bring him back because he's our best chance at winning. So there's that aspect. Zach Ertz going down with a knee injury. That one really did not look good at all. They could be losing their starting tight end, the Arizona Cardinals. I believe it was a second round draft pick. Trey McBride could start to see some run here with the first team. You mentioned Judy. Khalil Herbert from the Bears left with a hip injury. Gerald Everett left with a groin injury. And then, of course, the big one, which we were talking about yesterday, Juju Smith left with a concussion.
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest with you. The hit on Marquez Valdez-Scantling looked hard.
It was pretty bad, yeah.
But and I get it. Everybody responds to concussions a little differently, and you could kind of see like when he fell, like his hands like really.
It's the clenched fist,
similar to Tua.
So I gave you not even like a hard time because Josh and I don't fight, but I gave you a hard time through the text message where you're like, "What, the hit wasn't that bad." when I see the clenched fists and the arms stuck, it bothers me so much. And I always think back to, I think it was Javid Best with the Detroit Lions where his arm just got stuck in the air. I understand football can be a violent game, and I'm not one of these people who are like trying to de-violent the game. Like, it is what it is, I really just, I don't want to say I don't care. It bothers me with the clenched fist. I don't know what it is. It turns my stomach when I see it happen. So
no, 100%. Yeah. And obviously that opened up some more run for Kadarius Toney, which we'll talk to a little bit later. Carter, I promise we're Kadarius Toney is coming. And it's a good thing for the Chiefs offense, especially with Mecole Hardman, who missed the game. Juju with the concussion. There's a good chance he probably doesn't play this week. I don't think
there's any chance Juju plays this week based on that.
So that's basically, that puts Kadarius Toney as the wide receiver 2, really, behind Marquez Valdez-Scantling. So,
and the way they're running their offense,
going to get some run.
The way they're running their offense, it almost puts him as the wide receiver 1.
True. 100%.
Yeah, JJ Zacharyson does his big threat every week, and I don't remember the exact stat, but even though he ran like half the snaps as every other wide receiver, Kadarius Toney matched everybody in targets. So his usage is phenomenal. So
no, the usage was definitely up there. He ran 17 snaps, like pass snaps, ran a route on every single one of them. So that's what you want to see from a wide receiver, especially one who's 2 weeks in with.
And you and I talked about this. They're using him in the, I hate to use the term, but the Tyreek Hill role, the Mecole Hardman role. They're 2 carries, I think, this week. And that's how you want to use a guy like Kadarius Toney. So it's lovely usage and just one of the better offenses in the NFL. It's going to be good.
The hammy clinch into the end zone.
Yeah.
Gold. Just gold.
Well,
dude has scored more touchdowns in 2 games with the Chiefs than he ever scored as a New York Giant.
My personal favorite was during the bye week when or it was right after the bye week when the headline came out that Kadarius Toney is now 100% from his hamstring injury and could have played last week if there wasn't a bye week. And I'm like, who the fuck didn't know that all of a sudden being out of New York is the cure for Kadarius Toney's hamstring injury? So
too good.
All right, guys. So we're going to move on to the blackout. You start drinking knowing one thing, you wake up with something else. Josh, you kind of led the way here. And I want to talk a little bit about this Jeff Saturday thing. So I'm going to let you get started. Go ahead.
So reading through Twitter and watching some of the talking heads, how they were so vehemently against the hire of Jeff Saturday. And I get it.
I am as well. And that's what I wanted to talk about.
I still think that it was I don't want to call it like the most egregious thing like Joe Thomas did.
I said Joe Thomas went in.
Joe Thomas went in. He really went in. Saying that you don't hire your drinking buddy for a head coaching position, blah, blah, blah. Look, if there's not favoritism throughout the NFL, somebody is blind.
Yeah.
Because there's all types of favoritism in the NFL. Because there's plenty of head coaches currently that have no fucking business being head coaches. And we've talked about that.
And they just keep getting tried.
One of them was the guy that Jeff Saturday beat this week.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. So, like, I get it. Didn't put in the work, so to speak. He was just gifted this position. But let's not, like, get on the side that, yes, it's a hard position and not anybody wants to do it. But this is a guy that hasn't done it and just said, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to come in and I'm going to put in the work. And you know what? He came in and he put in the fucking work.
So are we giving him a bit too much credit? I was saying, but the Raiders are so bad.
The Raiders are bad, yes. But you know what we've been screaming at Frank Reich and the Colts to do? Run the fucking football with Jonathan Taylor.
Very fair point.
What did Jeff Saturday do? Run the football with Jonathan Taylor. So maybe this guy actually has reason to be a head coach because he's smarter than the ones that were already doing it.
And he did something we talked about. He gave Matt Ryan back the football. And it was weird what they were doing with Matt Ryan to begin with. And so I kind of brought that up, that I wondered if Matt Ryan was going to get the job back. I actually somehow completely missed that he got the job back. When I was doing my rankings and everything.
They made it at like the 11th hour.
Okay. I felt like I was out of the loop
before kickoff.
Okay, perfect. I was making French pastries at that time, so I didn't have time to pay attention to Matt Ryan. But I did not. I had no fucking idea. And then when Matt Ryan stole the touchdown from Jonathan Taylor, I was like, wait, Matt Ryan? Like, what is going on here? So.
Yes, right on the head, dude. Right on the head. Yes, Perfect. It's a very low bar. I get it.
So,
but you know what? There's steps here. He can keep taking those steps, and he might, and being better now than Josh McDaniels, who apparently was the fucking golden boy in this offseason coaching hire circle. So
my issue, and I don't know Jeff Saturday, and I don't know if he's put his story out there or his side of the story, but I'm leaning heavily on the Joe Thomas side of the article here. Was that apparently he was offered an assistant spot multiple times and turned it down. And then all of a sudden you're like, okay, well then just take the fucking head coach job. That is so strange to me. And obviously he knows the game. But again, I'm leaning on the Joe Thomas side of things here, but Joe Thomas alluded to the fact, if you didn't want to put in the time as an assistant, are you really going to put in the time as a head? And so obviously
what's the pay difference? Like, let's be honest here.
What is he getting paid? Do we know?
I don't know. But I'm sure it's more than what he would have made as an assistant.
Well, certainly.
Sometimes you put up with that stress when you're making X dollars, but you don't want to do it when you're only making Y dollars. Like, that's kind of how that works. I don't think they announced with
an interim, there's no real pay on salary, no news on salary.
But I would have to imagine that it's at least more than what ESPN was paying him. Otherwise, you don't leave that job. Like,
yeah, the whole situation. I don't know. I think I want to go in because there's some stat out there that like everybody has lost the game after they played the Panthers or some shit like that, or the Falcons. It's some team where they've all lost the following week. I want to know what the statistics on the statistical drop down from the week people played the Raiders, because it's going to come up a little bit later in the show. The Saints, after they beat the Raiders 25-0 or whatever, they've been absolute trash since that game. It's like, I wonder if there's some sort of trend there.
Stink on the league.
Yeah, it's bad, and I didn't think it was going to be that bad. But imagine Devontae Adams, who leaves.
Just thinking that too. I mean, look, the Raiders are likely going to find themselves in a position to where they can draft one of the top quarterbacks in the NFL in the draft coming up.
And you made the joke that this was all just to get Derek Carr out of the leagues.
Well, but here's the thing too. You're Devontae Adams. You signed a long-term extension with the Raiders because you wanted to go play with Derek Carr.
And now you're talking about playing with one of these quarterbacks. So,
like, where's the incentive to not throw a bitch fit to try to get traded?
Yeah, maybe you can go back to
like, this whole situation is set up to just like blow up in Adams' face, and it really does. It sucks for him because I know he was really looking forward to coming and playing back home. Like, he grew up a Raiders fan. He grew up in the area.
Some of the overall moves they're making are puzzling.
They released Jonathan Abram. Yeah.
What was that? And like, you can tell when it was a bad cut versus a good cut because he was immediately claimed off waivers by the Packers. Yeah. They're like, oh, we'll take him. Like,
it's a former first-round pick.
Former first-round pick. He wasn't playing all that poorly this year. Now, mind you, he's more of a linebacker safety. He's not going to be out there in coverage. So maybe it's just not what they were planning on doing. But it's like, do you have someone better? Like, what are you doing? Like, you're just cutting guys to cut guys now. So definitely very strange. And since we're already getting into head scratchers, let's move into the hangover, the biggest head scratcher of the week. I'll get us started this time because it's something I alluded to. 11 touches for Alvin Kamara and only 3 for Taysom Hill. If you look at Kamara over the last 2 games since the 3 touchdown game against the Raiders, he's only touched the ball 23 times, 107 total yards, and only 16 total fantasy points in those 2 games since he exploded for the 3 touchdown game. And it's been just a weird couple of games. They've lost 2 straight games to Baltimore, and then my goodness, whoever they lost to this week, I'm losing it right now. Yeah, Baltimore and Pittsburgh. That's right. The whole reason I'm even talking about this. Maybe you involve the guys who have been scoring touchdowns for you. Obviously, Taysom Hill is never going to match what he did that 1 week, but he's been a weapon. He had 10 carries against the Raiders. He's done well enough. And then Kamara has proven what he can do. I think the bigger, they only targeted him 4 times last week. Yet Adam Troutman gets 3. Like, what are you doing with this offense? Is it an Andy Dalton problem? And I know you kind of were going to bring up the fact that they keep running Andy Dalton out there. So.
Yeah, it's like you're losing with Andy Dalton. Why are we not giving Jameis Winston a shot here? I mean, the dude was 5-2 last year before he got hurt. I mean, and again, got hurt early this season with the back injury. If you're continually trotting out Andy Dalton, that makes me think that the back is still an issue for Jameis Winston. Or you're just like, you know what? This was a Sean Payton thing. He's not here anymore. Fuck Jameis. Like that's really what it makes it sound like, because
and that's what we thought they were going to do with Taysom Hill. The sentence you just said was precisely what I said in July about Taysom Hill. So.
It makes zero sense to me. Like, you continue to lose games with an average quarterback. Why not try to mix things up with a slightly above average quarterback that actually can throw the football downfield?
Yeah.
And make things interesting at the very least. I don't know. The Saints are just baffling to me.
And the thing is, he's not an interim head coach, but it's essentially an interim head coach situation where it was two guys who were on the staff last year. They just moved everybody up, and now you're just going to continue to be a bad team without your own first draft pick. So, but hey, as long as it keeps working for the Eagles, right?
Fine by me. Hope they win or lose.
Josh, what do you got as a head scratcher?
Kyle Shanahan. This dude, I don't get it. People think he's some sort of offensive genius. You traded a draft pick haul to go get Christian McCaffrey. The guy that he was effectively replacing comes off IR. Everybody just assumes that, you know what, it's Christian McCaffrey. He's going to keep doing his thing. Elijah Mitchell is just going to, kind of spell him when he needed, right?
Yeah.
Both of them had 20 touches yesterday.
Yep.
In a game that they barely won. Why is Christian McCaffrey not touching the ball close to 30 times?
Yep.
This is why you went out and got the guy. Not so that you can give his backup 20 fucking touches.
And then even more puzzling is just the piss poor usage and then effectiveness of Deebo Samuel now that this new offense is in place. So.
Shanahan is just like, oh no, I want to play with this toy this week. No, I want to play with this toy. No. And it's just like he's so ADHD, he doesn't know what the fuck to do. Like, that's what you're getting at with like little kids when they're like bouncing back and forth between between toys. And Joel, I get it. Mitchell did look pretty good. He was efficient. And you know what? It's almost crazy that backups are more efficient than starters.
Correct.
We talk about this all the fucking time.
But this is what I was hitting on. I'm not saying you don't go get Christian McCaffrey. You go get Christian McCaffrey. I did not see this as a need for the 49ers. Like, I have been, obviously Joe is all against Eli Mitchell on the Wednesday show. Eli Mitchell has looked good when he is healthy to play a football game. I don't know what Shanahan's goal with this offense is, but if it's a 4-touch fucking Deebo Samuel, a 2-target George Kittle, and running the ball 32 times to barely beat a bad football team, I don't quite know, because the Chargers are just a letdown at this point. You should not be playing this close to the Chargers when they have no wide receivers. It's unacceptable. So
Elijah Mitchell out-touched Christian McCaffrey inside the red zone yesterday.
And that's what McCaffrey
And it's not even
flourishes.
like Mitchell's a 225-pound back.
Exactly.
They're the same fucking size. Nowhere has Elijah Mitchell scored over 20 touchdowns in a season. Oh, but Christian McCaffrey has. Maybe he knows how to score touchdowns. Like, what is San Francisco doing? Kyle Shanahan is so fucking overrated. It blows my damn mind.
Did you see the stat that I think he's either 10-2 or 8-2, Jimmy Garoppolo, in games where he doesn't throw a touchdown, which is just incredible.
Yeah, because Shanahan will run the football, and that's fantastic. Great, cool. But when you have to throw the football, that's where Jimmy G struggles, because now he has to make decisions that are going to be detrimental.
I have friends who are 49ers fans. Do they just immediately go back to Trey Lance next year, do you think?
I mean, you invested in Trey Lance.
Yeah.
Like, at this point, you have to at least figure out that, hey, what did we give up all those draft picks for?
Okay. You know? I don't know enough about the kid, and obviously nobody really knows enough about the kid, but it's just Such an interesting situation of what that team is. So
I'm going to pull this comment up from Joel real quick. Yes, they did what they had to do, but for a team that was down their top 2 wide receivers, has one of the worst run defenses in the league, they should have, and supposedly the 49ers are a Super Bowl contender, one of the best offenses in the NFC. They should have blew them the fuck out.
It just felt like an ugly game.
No, it was an ugly game.
Yeah.
It was an atrocious game. But that's what separates good teams from great teams. Great teams go out and win the games that they need to win, and they do it convincingly.
Now, in the 49ers defense, where, the Chargers had no wide receivers, the 49ers have no corners anymore. They can't seem to keep anybody healthy there. So
I get it. They're constantly riddled with injuries. The 49ers are, but their offense was just fine.
Yeah.
And Shanahan's not calling defensive plays. He's calling offensive plays. So
that's fair. But yeah, definitely puzzling, and more puzzling not getting McCaffrey more involved. The efficiency thing, I'm never going to bring up the efficiency thing because, as we all know, the tagline for this show is backup running backs are supposed to be more efficient. But the usage is just weird because he's barely a backup running back. I have a throwback head scratch question we've all been asking for multiple years now. Why the fuck did the Chiefs draft Clyde Edwards-Helaire? 2 targets and no carries yesterday. Meanwhile, Isaiah Pacheco walks out with 16 carries. Jerick McKinnon with back-to-back 9-target games, I believe. Or I think it was 10 targets the week before.
Fumbled
on the goal line.
Still kept getting the ball.
And got the next red zone carry. Explain that to me. Because I literally...
They're so done with CEH.
As a person who is heavily invested in Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, when he fumbled that ball, I was elated because I'm like, oh, this is another Travis Kelce 4-touchdown game. And then the kid gets the next carry inside the red zone. I'm like, no, Andy Reid, don't do this to me.
Got to rebuild that confidence,
Yeah. But they're willing to rebuild the confidence of a 7th round or a non-drafted player, whatever Pacheco is, over the first round investment of Clyde. They're like, fuck your confidence, buddy. You're out of here. Clearly, it's just such a weird situation to me. And Josh, it lends us perfectly into our shot of espresso because of that same draft. It's always been the question of Clyde Edwards-Helaire, DeAndre Swift, and Jonathan Taylor. It's been a rough season for Jonathan Taylor, Josh, but yesterday he made you happy again.
Oh, dude, absolutely lit it up. I believe he was hang on, let me just verify this real quick. Yeah, he was the RB1 on the week.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, it's crazy what happens when you give the football to arguably the best running back in the NFL.
And one of the things I like to point out, that was a 66-yard touchdown. So he still was at 21 carries for 84 yards outside of that touchdown.
I mean, it's still 4 yards a carry. This is what the guy does. He has home run speed. When he finds that hole, he goes. And this offensive line for the Colts, they've really struggled this year. And JT has made the most of it when they give him the football. I think there was one game he had only 10 carries. But the dude had 58 yards. And it's yeah, he can do this. Maybe give it to him more often.
Especially about
when your quarterback is struggling.
Yeah, nothing about this season has made me doubt Jonathan Taylor. And I've traded him away in leagues when I thought I needed to. But nothing about this season has made me doubt Jonathan Taylor. It's made me doubt the Colts because they haven't been able to figure this quarterback situation out since Andrew Luck. It continues to get bad. We talked about that a lot last week. The offensive line isn't really doing what they're supposed to do. But, man, if you open this guy a hole, if you let him get to the second level, there's not a safety or a corner in the league that's going to stop him. So,
yeah, no, it was good to see Taylor get back into the swing of things. And as I mentioned on Wednesday, when I said that Jeff Saturday was going to find a way to lead the Colts to beat the Raiders, it's going to be because they're going to lean on Jonathan Taylor because an offensive lineman, what they do is they pave the way for their running back.
And that was common sense coaching, and that's a great call on you because, like I said, I was down. I was wondering, and this does speak to Jeff Saturday, at least that he wants to win. Because I was wondering, do they bring Jonathan Taylor back? But then when I saw Deion Jackson was out, Jonathan Taylor immediately gets a full practice in, and then the bringing back of Matt Ryan speaks volumes to Jeff Saturday, at least as a competitor. And so I guess that's something. It's just, is that something going to lead to wins over non-Raiders football teams? And then I have to just bring up, if we're talking about games or plays or anything that got the juices flowing, my goodness, it wasn't a surprise That Bills-Vikings game was what the NFL needed after just like a weird season so far. And if you haven't, just go watch the highlights of that game on the NFL's Twitter YouTube page. You have the Stephon Diggs one-handed catch. Gorgeous. The Justin Jefferson catch, which I'll wax poetically about here in just a few moments. The end zone fumble was bananas. I thought it was a safety, and I thought it might have been an intentional safety. I did not realize that he lost the ball. A field goal drive to send it to overtime, and then throwing a pick in overtime, your second pick to Patrick Peterson. It was a rough game of highs and lows for Josh Allen, which we've kind of gotten used to at this point in his career. That Justin Jefferson catch, for this being a regular season, non-primetime game, I can only compare it to the Odell Beckham catch, but it is so different from the Odell Beckham catch. The Odell Beckham catch was just amazing. What Justin Jefferson did here by not letting that ball hit the ground, snagging it from the two hands of a defender. And my favorite part that doesn't get enough play is that he switched arms to keep from dropping that ball. If it's not the best play I've ever seen, I don't know what is. It's up there with Edelman in the Super Bowl. Obviously, the stakes were much lower, but it's just a bananas play, a bananas game. And I will watch that catch repeatedly like I did the Odell Beckham catch for many years. Like it was amazing.
All I know is we drafted Jalen Reagor over that guy. How he fixed it, though. We got A.J. Brown, so I feel a little bit better, but like, damn.
Yeah, A.J. Brown's a hell of a consolation prize.
So fucking good.
And I was so happy to see it. Like, I watch Red Zone. I don't watch full-out games. So I watch Red Zone, and he happened to be on that game live when the play took. And like, I'm pretty sure I was mid-conversation with Marlia and literally was just like, holy fucking shit. Like, it got me up out of my chair. I'm not a Vikings fan. Like we were talking last week, I'm surprised the Vikings exist, let alone are now 7-1 or 8-1, whatever they are. Their only losses to the undefeated Eagles. Like, the Vikings need to be taken seriously. And this is with a bad defense, or at least a bad secondary. It's so very interesting what the Minnesota Vikings are doing this season. So,
and they're coming back to win these games.
Yeah. Kirk Cousins is looking legit. just keep him out of prime time. Yeah.
Well, but aren't playoff games in prime time? Let's be honest here.
Every one of them. So we know he's going to choke in the playoffs. I mean, was it the Vikings Joe was shitting on this past week that he's calling them the new Steelers where they're just going to collapse? Because he's probably right. So.
Probably.
All right, let's get into a user question. Our buddy George Cook. Going forward between Burrow and Fields, he has T. Higgins, so he likes the stack, but they both have great matchups. I have repeatedly said, and Josh was actually, I'm going to give credit where it's due. Josh was the first adopter. Josh said to go get him before the Cowboys game because he thought people were down on him when they should have been. I don't see how you bench Justin Fields and his 10 fantasy point floor just out of rushing moving forward. I don't see any situation where I'm benching Justin
I think it's
Fields.
Actually more than, back to back,
certainly,
he's at 140 plus rushing yards.
Well, and then when you think that he scores every game. So we're literally talking a 16 to 20 point floor off of the rushing yards. He's starting to find Kmet. He's starting to find Mooney. Did Kmet come back from that knee bump? I didn't see much more of the game. So he's not hurt.
The 50-yard touchdown catch was after that, I believe.
Oh, was it? I thought it was okay.
Yeah.
I must have missed that then. Okay. But so no, it was before that. The knee bump was towards the end of the game where he ran into because my hater self was like, oh no, I don't have to hear about any more Cole Kmet touchdowns.
Yeah, you do. He's living his best Robert Tonyan life. So,
and again, we'll talk about it later. I said it on Twitter. Fantasy needs good tight ends, so I'm all about Cole Kmet. I don't know the Bengals schedule off the top of my head. I'm going to look this up real quick, but I don't really see a situation for anybody not.
Bears play the Falcons. Bengals play the Steelers. I mean, they're both good matchups.
Yep. Steelers do get TJ Watt back. TJ Watt did get after the quarterback already this week, and that's his first game back. Bengals offensive line is still not great. I'm leaning the Fields route for sure. I don't think there's anybody on the Falcons who will be able to slow him down.
Yeah, no, you can't sit Justin Fields right now. And I hate to say that just because Burrow has played so well. But I mean, if you're going between those two guys, it's an easy Fields for me.
Yeah.
I'm looking up right now what Burrow's career, like what he's done against the Steelers. I mean, the Steelers kind of own this guy. He has one. His last game against them, he did 338 yards, 2 touchdowns, 4 INTs.
Yeah.
I mean, he's thrown at least 1 touchdown in every game.
I would argue that his schedule is not that great because the Titans, while Patrick Mahomes saved his day in the fourth quarter, the Titans have played well. The Chiefs game should be interesting on December 4th. That's going to be a great game. I won't be surprised if that gets flexed to prime time. That's going to be an absolutely great game. But then he gets the Browns. And if you don't know Joe Burrow's history with the Browns, it's bad. So I don't know that that's a great game. Tampa Bay has been kind of hit or miss. The Patriots, I don't know that I love his schedule all that much. What a hell of a run the Bengals have to end the season because they then have the Bills on January 2nd as well. What a rough end of the season for the Cincinnati Bengals. So.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Obviously, George, you know your league better than we do. Sometimes trading quarterbacks in redraft leagues can be difficult.
I'm in a situation
we end up kind of attaching them as sort of like a throw-in piece instead of truly getting great value for them. But I mean, if you can use Burrow to attach with one of your wide receivers or running backs to upgrade at that position, then yeah, 100% do it. I mean, the biggest downside is that Fields' bye is in week 14. Obviously, Burrow just had his, but you can pick up Jimmy Garoppolo for 1 week. Davis Mills might be able to salvage 15 points 1 week.
Yeah, you need to know how important your week 14 game is. Your record is going to play into this. Personally, I don't have a problem with holding both of them. We're getting to the point in the year where your bench is just as important as your starters as you get into the playoffs because there's not going to be a lot of wiggle room. One of the things people tend to forget, waivers get infinitely harder come teams getting eliminated because they stop dropping players as well. And so you don't get a chance at some of these roster churns. It ends up being the same exact pack of guys that you'll have for waivers for the entire end of the season. I'm in a similar situation where I have Jalen Hurts and Tua Tagovailoa. Josh, you hit exactly what I was going to say on the head. It has to be a throw-in piece for an upgrade elsewhere. So if there's a position where you can upgrade by giving them a quarterback, that's what I would look to do with Joe Burrow. Just to look for that upgrade because I've struck out teams that need Tua aren't coming to me. And the upgrades, I'll be honest, their teams aren't good enough for me to want to upgrade. So I'm just hanging on to Tua and praying for Jalen Hurts' health at this point.
Sometimes it's easier just to hold the piece and let it, quote unquote, beat you versus giving it to an opponent and letting them beat you.
That's the thing is at this point in the year, I'm also very cognizant of if I'm making a playoff team better. When Aaron Jones went down in a league, I have A.J. Dillon, who is completely worthless. In case Aaron Jones was going to miss time, I would not offer that guy A.J. Dillon because I am literally fighting for a playoff spot with this team right now. I'm like, I'm not going to give you a running back. Now, Josh, you would call it addition by subtraction because I'm probably making him worse by making him start A.J. Dillon every week.
Exactly. Chess, not checkers.
Well, I'll say that. Yeah, exactly. But I was just worried. I don't like trading starting running backs. So that's my other thing is Burrow is good. You mentioned, you're 7-3 after tonight, after AJ Brown goes off tonight. You mentioned you're going to be 7-3. Burrow's good. I don't know that you really want to go out there and make another team better. If you don't need a definitive upgrade, I think I just hold both, but I am definitely riding Justin Fields until he proves to me he's not going to rush for 60 yards every game. Exactly. Obviously 60 is the low end of that. So, All right, Josh, we have some users who have been talking about Christian Watson, and he happens to be the star of your morning mimosas, where we just have that feeling, that tingling feeling that something is coming. So let's give the people what they want on Christian Watson and Kadarius Toney.
I mean, dude, he caught 3 fucking touchdowns. Look, he was a 2nd round pick, right? 34th overall. Packers caught a lot of flack because, they passed on George Pickens and all this stuff. And Watson's been, literally his first target of the season right through his hands. It's like, oh, we got MVS 2.0 here. It's like, what the fuck? And then Rodgers, and then he's had the back and forth with the injuries and getting knocked out and this and that, et cetera. And, one of his first big plays of this game was that exact same play from week 1. And this time he caught it and went in for the touchdown. I was like, okay, now we're cooking. Gets a 2nd touchdown, then gets a 3rd touchdown. It's like, hey, who needs Romeo Dobbs? There's a reason that guy was what, a 4th, 5th round pick, whatever it was, and Watson was the 2nd.
Yep.
Watson is good at football. There's still a lot that he needs to learn just from a, developing as a wide receiver, but he's got the wheels. So for him and Rodgers, it's all about getting that timing down and
100%.
Watson staying.
I was going to say he actually missed another touchdown off timing, and it was more Rodgers' part than Watson's part. He just doesn't quite know Watson's speed yet. So
exactly, and a veteran like Rodgers, he's going to figure that out. But this is one of those games where, as a fantasy manager that's looking for that waiver wire darling, like if you've been holding on to some of that fab, or you're down like out of the playoffs right now, but you've scored a lot of points and you just need that break. Watson right now, I feel like, is that guy. Like, go out, put in that claim for Watson. With Dobbs out, Watson is going to get every opportunity to take this wide receiver 1 role and run with it.
If you are a longtime listener of this show, we have flip-flopped on this wide receiver 1 role in Green Bay this whole season, but Dobbs being out adds some clarity to the situation.
Because we know it's not Sammy Watkins, let's be honest.
Yeah, and we talked about this. I don't get to see a lot of Packers games, but when I was watching Watkins play week 1, week 2, they were scheming for him. And I wondered if it was going to flip to be Watson they're scheming for, and that's what I'm seeing right now, and that's enormous. Scheming with Aaron Rodgers is how Aaron Rodgers finds you and how you win. And that's what you need, especially with trust in these young wide receivers. And Joel's been talking about this for a while. It's a forced trust. What else is he going to do? But it's taken the time that almost all rookies take. Buy into it is, I guess, what I'm trying to say. Because Aaron Rodgers doesn't want to go out a complete fucking loser. And so he's going to be trying. And as long as he can keep this job, I think it's going to play out very well for him. So
I agree.
And then keep going, Josh.
Keep rolling, or you want to go back and forth?
No, you keep going. I like all the names you have here.
So I'll touch on Tony quickly, just because we brought him up earlier. But as I mentioned earlier, that end zone walk was fucking hilarious. Absolutely loved it. Just a straight troll job of the Giants. But again, it's the usage for me. Like, he ran a route. It was a roughly 61% route participation, which again, 2 weeks with the team, really, I guess 3, because he was traded on their bye week. But there's still obviously some stuff that he's got to learn and pick up. But Andy Reid, to me, is still the best offensive mind in the NFL. 100%. And if there's anybody that is going to scheme to get a guy open, it's going to be Andy Reid getting Kadarius Toney the football in space. Mecole Hardman has played well the last 4 weeks, because Andy Reid has schemed to get him the football.
1,000%.
So now it's like, hey, we've got a better athlete here, a better wide receiver here. Maybe we can do some things with Kadarius Toney. If Toney is out there on your waivers, grab him, please.
Oh yeah.
The sky is the limit for him for the rest of the season in this. And
if you're gonna make a terrible trade to pay for Josh Jacobs, don't throw Kadarius Toney in as the extra piece because you don't know who you want to cut. That would be madness.
Thank you. The sad part about that trade, Ryan, I didn't even want Toney.
I know you didn't. And you wanted Shakir, but I didn't want to know. I would have ended up without Shakir and Toney, because I probably would have cut Kadarius Toney. I will say I at least saw Josh Jacobs go for a first in another league I'm in. Sure, it's half the price that I paid for him, but at least other people are also overpaying for Josh Jacobs right now. I feel a little bit.
My last one here, Nico Collins. I was banging the drum for this guy all off season.
Absolutely.
I thought that he had a clear shot to potentially get 100 targets. But man, I tell you, Davis Mills in 2022 has not looked like Davis Mills from 2021.
Yeah, we use the expression quite a bit, turning back into a pumpkin. Davis Mills has turned back into a pumpkin.
Yeah, it has not been pretty, but the plus side here, and again, Brandon Cooks missing last week, thought he was going to get traded, needed a week. I get it, whatever. He's back. Nico Collins out-targeted him. 10 targets for Collins, 7 for Cooks. 5 for 49 and a touchdown on 10 targets. Not a great completion percentage, but again, when you're dealing with Davis Mills, it is what it is.
And Nico Collins' game is going to lend itself to not a high completion percentage.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he's going to be the downfield guy. He's not, the short, the intermediate, like the high, percent completion passes, but like, finishing out the season against Washington, Miami, Cleveland, Dallas, KC, Tennessee, there's some matchups here.
I say outside of Tennessee, these are teams that can't guard the wide receivers. So.
Yeah, exactly. So, Nico has a shot to be a pretty solid flex play from here on out. Again, a lot of it's just going to depend on Davis Mills. Yeah. When he gets pressured up the middle, they're the rookie Green, the offensive lineman they got in the first round this past year. He's going through those rookie growing pains, and Mills is getting lit up front. But when he's got some time to sit back and actually hit his wide receivers, he's doing it. So I'm feeling good about Collins at least the rest of the season, and I feel like people should probably take notice of that.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point, Nico Collins. I cut him very early because he's not a rookie and there was no reason to wait. And speaking of guys that I cut, again, did not realize Matt Ryan was back. Was all in on Paris Campbell a couple weeks ago, and then Sam Ehlinger takes over and it just completely falls apart. But I am back in on Paris Campbell as long as Matt Ryan is the quarterback. 9 targets this week, 7 catches for 76 yards and a touchdown. If you look at his last 3 games with Matt Ryan at quarterback, 32 targets, over 10 per game, 24 catches for 203 yards and 3 touchdowns. That's 62 fantasy points in 3 games, 21 per game, which would make him a top 10 fantasy wide receiver. And nobody wants to believe that because it's Paris Campbell. But this is the role we've envisioned. I feel like I'm repeating myself from 2 weeks ago. We just didn't realize that Sam Ehlinger was going to completely destroy this, and we were never going to see anything good while he was in as the quarterback. But it's just so very good to see Paris Campbell legit. Dalton Schultz is another one. He's getting healthy at the same time. Dak is getting healthy. 20 targets for 17 and 187 in his last 3 games, and he's found the end zone. He's the tight end 5 since week 7, and then a little mea culpa in that exact same period. Cole Kmet is the tight end 1. So
sorry, Ryan, I didn't hear you.
Cole Kmet is the fucking tight end 1 over the last 3 weeks of the season, 3 points ahead of my guy Travis Kelce. And you know what? This is a perfect segue into George's question here. So George wants to know what we're making of the Detroit backfield. And Josh, I love that you've kind of turned around on Jamal Williams here a little bit, but he packaged Swift and Ertz to get Travis Kelce. Anybody who has followed this show for half a second knows that I am all for this trade. You get Travis Kelce, you get it. But he does bring up an interesting point that Noah Gray has been very involved lately. And I think that's more a product of them not really having the wide receivers where they want to run 3 wide receiver sets all that often. But Josh, what's your take on this trade? What's your take on Jamal Williams right now? Because your takes on Jamal Williams have shifted a little bit this season.
Yeah, well, I mean, they have to. I mean, he's getting the football. He's
because you're not an idiot.
Yeah, it's like I'm not gonna. I was out early in the season because I believe in Swift and I believe in the talent, but he keeps getting hurt. And now, the Detroit staff is treating him like a fucking Ritz cracker that he's just going to, break at any moment. So they're not giving him the football. So it's like, why am I going to continue to not believe in Jamal Williams when clearly Detroit is? Like, yeah. So, no, I mean, he's definitely more than flex worthy, George. I'll give you, like, he's 100%. At minimum, he should be starting for you every single week as a solid RB2. He's getting not only the carries, but also catches. He's scoring touchdowns. When Detroit is close, they are giving him the football in the red zone. Yeah. And again, those are the high percentage touches that you want in fantasy. So for me, I don't hate this trade at all. If you have both of these, you're saying that you have Williams as well. So yeah,
super interesting.
Landing Kelce is dude, that's a home run.
It's super interesting to me that the manager you're trading with didn't try to get Jamal off of you as well to get that whole backfield. That was a ballsy move on their part. Under the radar thing, they were involving Craig Reynolds a lot, and he went to IR this week. So this is a Swift and Jamal Williams backfield. Like, you're not going to see a lot of Justin Jackson cutting in, things like that. I think it's a great trade. And you landed Travis Kelce. Jamal Williams is definitely a starter type player. Plus, I always bring this up in 2-for-1s. If you land the best player and get the free roster spot. Now you have a roster spot that you can go out there and grab a guy like Kadarius Toney if you don't have him already. I just want to quickly address the Noah Gray thing. 6 targets over the last 2 games. I'm not overly concerned about him cutting into Kelsey's work. I think it's a product of they don't, as I mentioned, they don't have a lot of 3 wide receiver sets that they even want to run. I think they're running more 2 tight end sets right now.
Especially in the end zone.
Yeah, Jerick McKinnon is the bigger concern for cutting into Travis Kelce's work, just because they haven't really thrown to their running back this often, this much. And so it's good to see that that they're getting a running back involved for the Chiefs offense in general. I'm not worried about Travis Kelce. Obviously, it's been a letdown. He scored his first touchdown this week since the 4 touchdown game, but he's involved 32 targets in the last 3 games. No reason to be mildly worried about Travis Kelce at all. And our buddy McSweet is wondering, Josh, with your Eagles going tonight, he's down 11 points. He needs Jalen Hurts to outscore A.J. Brown by 11 points in PPR. Does he have a chance?
I mean, of course he has a chance. The big thing with Hurts is he hasn't been running as much lately. Exactly. So that's kind of lowered his fantasy floor in that instance. But he's throwing so much, and he's throwing a lot of touchdowns. The biggest thing that you really need is that if A.J. Brown's going to get at least one of those touchdowns, the other ones can't go to A.J. Brown. Like, they have to go to Dallas Goedert. They have to go to Devonta Smith, which, by the way, today's Devonta Smith's birthday.
Ooh.
I think we might be seeing a big Devonta Smith game. I'm just throwing that out there.
Okay. I like it.
I'm trying to see. Aligning. So,
has it happened in the last 3 games is the real question.
But it hasn't needed to happen.
Absolutely. So,
and that's the big thing. So, A.J. Brown is the first read in this offense, but, Jalen Hurts is going to spread the ball around. The Commanders did not activate Chase Young for this game. So that's one less person that Hurts has to worry about rushing him. They're going to get pressure on the interior, but the Eagles have arguably the best offensive line in football. So I'm really not that worried about it from that perspective.
Yeah.
But, and the Washington secondary is god awful. So Hurts is going to put up plenty of passing numbers. It's just going to be a matter of, do they get up early and just run the football the rest of the game? Is Taylor Heineke actually going to make the Commanders competitive tonight? I'm not 100% sure that he will. I mean, I'm not one to doubt Heineke because he is fun to watch, but he's also prone to a lot of turnovers.
Yeah.
And I think that'll play against the whole, Hurts having to run around and actually pick up yards with his legs. So that lowers the floor. I think it'll be close. I would still lean towards Hurts just because he's going to be the guy that produces the most. And like I said, with it being Devonta Smith's birthday, I think we're going to see a big Devonta Smith game.
The Devonta Smith birthday thing, that one almost sways me. I'm going to say you lost.
And let's not forget who torched Washington earlier in the season.
Was that his
Devonta
game?
Smith.
Okay.
Yeah.
And now
what was it? 8 for 189 or something in 2 touchdowns?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would call it, I was going to say you're losing for sure, but Josh has now tweaked me. I'll say 51% that you lose. Here's the thing, and Josh, you've talked about this so many times on this show and all of our shows. 2 of these 3 guys are going to eat every week. It's just, can A.J. Brown be the one who doesn't eat this week? So, and here's the thing.
If I had to guess, honestly, I think it'll probably be Dallas Goedert that takes a step back.
Yeah. I have a pending trade offer out for A.J. Brown on a team where if the guy loses, he'll trade me A.J. Brown. So I hope it's A.J. Brown who doesn't eat this week, because then I get him
just
on
so
a
you
team
can get
where
him
I
cheap.
Desperately need him. Oh, it's not cheap. I'm paying up for him. I know what I'm getting here. But again, I need this guy to really lose his game, blah, blah, blah. So cream or sugar, Josh, buy low, sell high. And I'm not going to lie, I had a lot of trouble with this segment this week. It took me the longest to fill these out. And we're coming up on the trade deadline. So we're getting close to the point where this is a segment that doesn't really matter anymore. But exactly. I found it very interesting where you're going with yours. So I'm going to let you just go in on the Dolphins backfield.
Yeah, I mean, just look at the last 2 weeks with the Dolphins having sent a 5th-round pick to go get Jeff Wilson. He's outproduced Raheem Mostert the last 2 weeks,
and he's damn good.
Dude looks like a completely different running back than what we saw in San Francisco.
Yeah,
like he looks electric. 17 carries this week to Raheem Mostert's 8.
Yeah,
like that's a big difference. Both of them had roughly the same amount of production receiving wise, especially for fantasy points. But like Raheem Mostert did fall into the end zone. He's a top 10 running back this week. use that to your advantage, because teams are going to see the production, right? They're going to see the total points. They're not looking at, oh, wait, he's fallen to second behind Jeff Wilson. Like, no, most people, the average player, is not really paying much attention to that. So, yeah, I mean, if that's, I'm all about, like, go get Jeff Wilson. Like, if he was dropped because of the Christian McCaffrey news, you should have picked him up after last week. If for whatever reason he's still on waivers, that should 1000% be your first waiver priority claim. But if he's on someone else's team, you need to go make trade offers for him, because he has a legitimate RB2 floor, in my opinion, for the rest of the season, because of how this team will run the football. Yes, they have the weapons in Waddle and Hill, but they're like, McDaniel has shown he's going to run the football. He was the running back coordinator with San Francisco. Like, running the football is his bread and butter. But he's not stupid. He knows that, hey, we're paying Tyreek Hill $30 million. We got Jalen Waddle. Yeah, we can use these guys. But because of those guys, it makes running the football so much easier. So go get Jeff Wilson. Try to sell high on Raheem Mostert. If you can do it, go for it. Improve at the wide receiver position.
To touch on the point you were making, he was only 45% rostered 2 weeks ago. That jumped up to 77 this week. But that means he's still out there in 28% of ESPN leagues, which means statistically there's a 22% chance he's out there in your league, a 1 in 4 chance. So it's definitely someone worth going to look for. And he's worth, this late in the season, he's worth whatever fab or waiver priority you need to blow, because he is a starting running back who has 15 to 25 touch potential and can score touchdowns. So for me, it ended up coming down to, it's very easy to pick a sell high, and that's Devin Singletary for all the reasons Josh just said. Devin Singletary had not scored a touchdown yet until this week, and then finally scores 2 touchdowns. So now,
he was RB 28 overall heading into this week.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a starting running back in the NFL, and he's not even a top 24 option. Like, that just
and a very much a start, like a primary carry starting running back. Like, and so at this point, take these touchdowns. He's just a guy. I'm a Singletary guy, but I've always said Josh Allen taking away what they can score in the red zone hurts Bills running backs. I was not happy when James Cook ended up there. James Cook has been a constant. He's 5 carries a game. Eventually, this rookie is going to see more touches. And the last thing Singletary can afford to do is lose touches when he's not scoring touchdowns either. So take advantage of these 12 points and move him. My buy low is you're going to have trouble getting him, but I think it's worth going out and getting Rachaad White. Looked very good running the ball this week. There were already rumors. Don't buy so much into the Leonard Fournette injury. There were already rumors Rachaad White was taking this job this week. So it was shocking to me to see Fournette get the play he was already getting. But Rachaad White, 4.8 yards per carry, and did 10 fantasy points with no receiving work. He was not involved in the passing game whatsoever. This is what he's supposed to be good at. So if Rachaad White is going to get more involved in this offense, especially now with Leonard Fournette likely to miss, I don't know if he's going to miss any time because they already have the bye week, but I'm looking to get Rachaad White as your trade deadline approaches. And even if it's just to stash him, I think moving into the fantasy playoffs as he gets more involved in the passing game, Rachaad White is a guy who I want to have on my rosters.
I agree.
All right, Josh, my favorite segment, the reason this show exists, it's chill the fuck out, either for good or for bad. He's not that good. He's not that bad. Josh, get us started. You got one for us this week.
So Julio Jones came back to life in Germany.
Yeah. And let's be clear, Julio Jones has moved up from the next segment, which is guys you can officially drop to chill the fuck out. So,
look, I'm still not like itching to go pick up Julio Jones just because he scored a touchdown, but this is what fantasy football does. Like, you score a touchdown and it's the name value too.
There was only one game on.
Yeah, right. So everybody saw Julio Jones score. And don't get me wrong, Julio looked good in Germany. He really, he looked better than we've seen him at any point this season. And, the Brady needs Julio Jones.
Yeah.
Because there's no depth behind Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Like, absolutely none. Now you factor in that Leonard Fournette is banged up. The team worked Cameron Braid in a lot more with him coming back, kind of taking away some of the routes and stuff that Cade Otton was running, which kind of hurts my heart because heartbreak, kind of relying on Cade Otton in a few leagues. But no, like I don't think you're going to get much from Julio going forward. Like, he's still Julio Jones, so defenses are going to pay attention to him. But again, this is an older guy. Seasons get longer. Eventually, he's just going to break down like he has to start this season. And
he probably broke down on the damn flight back from Germany.
Would not surprise me. Which, I want to throw this out here really quick. The NFL did Seattle fucking dirty putting them in Germany. That was a 9-hour time difference.
From damn near the opposite side of the world.
Yes. 9-hour time difference for Seattle. Like, I understand it was, still not great for Tampa being 6 hours. And they're apparently going to do like 4 more games in Germany before 2025. But can you not put West Coast teams out there?
Yeah, it's
like that is doing all of these players a complete disservice in doing this, because that is a lot of toll on your body, not just from a time change, but also going on and playing a football game with that time change.
Yeah.
Like, that's just fucked up. I'm sorry. NFL, fix this shit.
Yeah, that was completely rough. And it showed in bits and pieces of the game. Like they
look how slow Seattle started.
They made it a game that whole later, first half was non-existent. So
yeah. Shout out Ken Walker though, because he may have only had 17 yards rushing.
But those PPR points at the end there.
Yep. Catch passes. Saying.
Well, that's the thing is we've talked about that with Ken Walker for a while. Is they didn't use him that way at Michigan State. They probably weren't going to use him that way in Seattle. But if they want to use him that way, it will work.
And if they need to, because the Bucs running was legit on Sunday. And when you can't get your best player, the football, on the ground, sometimes you have to make amends, and that's what they did. They adjusted.
Yeah. My chill the fucks outs are boring this week. I don't think anyone's running out there to grab Matt Ryan, but I will say, I've talked him up a little bit this show. 9 of his 24 fantasy points, more than 35% of his fantasy points came from rushing. It's not going to happen with a 38-year-old Matt Ryan or however old he is these days. So you can't count on that very often. This was a very average week for Matt Ryan. Great for the Colts. Average for Matt Ryan. Not somebody I'm looking to go out there and get, even if I'm streaming. And then I'm just going to always forever give Cordero Patterson a pass. But the fact that he had a bad game and then acknowledged his fantasy managers, I love seeing shit like that. He said, my fantasy managers are mad. He still loves us. I fully take that as he is going to rebound for us. So let's not freak out on Cordero Patterson. We've been talking him up on this show for a while. Josh, I think it was on the, well, it wouldn't have been the Wednesday show, but maybe I heard you guys talk about it on Starts a Different Day. I don't know where it was, but you brought up how everybody else had touched the ball far more than Cordero Patterson. So it was not a great game overall for Cordero Patterson, but I'm not concerned.
It wasn't really a great game overall for the Falcons in general. Yeah. So
I would love to see him get more involved in the passing game. Only 2 targets again this week. I don't quite know what they're doing, but they just won't throw the football. We're going to jump into deep waivers. These are guys that are available in 90% or more ESPN leagues. The idea here is that there are bigger leagues out there than your 10 and 12 team leagues, and you need to find some guys who aren't readily available everywhere. Christian Watson is the most obvious one, and he's going to be a high waiver priority for every single team this week, but he is the best guy available. And I'm going to be very honest with you guys. Running back, it's dreadful in these deep leagues. So Van Jefferson, Ben Skoranek are very interesting if Cooper Kupp is going to miss time. Van Jefferson, I believe this was his first game back. If not his first game, his second game, 11 fantasy points. Skoranek, when I was writing my waiver article last week, Skoranek is like great value brand Cooper Kupp. And if that's how they employ him for the rest of this season, it could be very interesting in PPR leagues. He's not going to do what Cooper Kupp does with the ball, but they really like this kid. And I don't know that Van Jefferson is going to slide into that role. So they're both very interesting to me. Darius Slayton, we can't argue with what he's doing with the deep ball anymore. Danny Jones hit him again this week. I don't think we're going to be able to fight the need to have Darius Slayton in many more leagues than he's employed in right now. Nico Collins, Josh hit all the nails on the head there. Very favorable schedule coming up. And then, like I mentioned, running back and tight end are dreadful. Jerick McKinnon, you can't argue, 19 targets in the last 2 weeks. These guys are both available in about 85% of leagues, so I had to break my own rule here just to give you guys some extra players. And Foster Moreau, Darren Waller went to IR this week. Moreau was very involved. Yes, the Raiders suck, but they're going to have to pass the ball to somebody, and it's Moreau's job for at least the next month. For players we can drop, Chase Claypool at 72%. I understand he switched teams and we all wanted something to happen. This is Justin Fields' team. This is Justin Field with his legs team. Chase Claypool does not need to be rostered in 72% of leagues. Robert Woods at 50%. I don't know that we have had a bigger miscalculation than what was going to happen with the Tennessee Titans passing game. Robert Woods, even when he was the only wide receiver, was not involved. And now Treylon Burks is back and Nick Westbrook-Akine is getting involved. Matt Stafford at 51%. Can't figure this one out for the life of me. Get him off your roster. Cam Akers at 48%. Kieran Williams came back this week and immediately saw 2 or 3 targets. I just don't see Cam Akers getting involved enough where you need to have him on your roster. And finally, maybe a little bit of a controversial take here, but Hunter Renfrow, Michael Thomas, and Darren Waller are all above 40%. Just because you have an IR doesn't mean you need to use it. I don't see a point in this season, because they're going to miss the next 3 weeks. We're getting into fantasy playoff time where you're going to be like, thank God I have Hunter Renfrow coming back, and you're going to put him into your lineup. So these are guys that, if they're on your IR, great. But if you're wasting a roster spot on these guys, it is time to move on. Josh, do I have anybody I missed or any takes you want to throw?
No, I mentioned on Wednesday. I mean, if you don't need to keep Darren Waller at this point.
Mm-hmm.
He hasn't been involved in that offense. Hunter Renfrow should have been dropped a long ass time ago.
Yeah.
Michael Thomas, I can see if you want to keep him, but
you better have an IR. He better at least be on the IR.
None of these guys need to be rostered if there's no IR spot, at all, unless it's maybe like some big tournament or something. Which even then, I think you can make the.
I just don't know a situation where you're going to be like, okay, it's week 14. My season's on the line. Michael Thomas, go get it, baby.
So, no, I agree with all 3 of these guys in all honesty.
All right, Josh, give me your prediction for tonight. Monday night, you got the Eagles, you got the Commanders. I know who you're predicting to win, but make it interesting. What do we got going on tonight?
Oh, it's going to be another Devonta Smith game. As I mentioned earlier, it's his birthday today. He lit up the Commanders the first go around. The Commanders have since moved on from William Jackson. Yeah. All that means is an even worse corners coming in. So, no, I mean, Jalen Hurts is going to keep the train going. They've had 11 days now to prepare because they played last Thursday. So yeah, the Commanders don't stand a chance. The one thing I will say, expect a big Antonio Gibson game. Ooh. The one thing that the Eagles have struggled with, especially since Jordan Davis has been out, they cannot stop the run. On the season, they are averaging 6 yards a carry allowed just to running backs. I'm not expecting Brian Robinson to do much because he's not like a speed guy. He's a plotter, but he could very easily average over 4 yards a carry. But this is how the Commanders have a chance to win this game. They have to run the football, and Antonio Gibson, whether it's between the tackles, around the edges, or even passing attempts, that's the guy that you want to start for the Commanders if you're doing anything. So for all you DFS players in Showdown, that's your captain this week.
I absolutely love that. And I'm hoping to see maybe Logan Thomas get involved again. The Eagles have definitely shored up against the tight end, but Logan Thomas has been back for the last 2 weeks and has scored exactly 0 fantasy points in those 2 games. So not quite sure what's going on there. I would have thought there would have been a little bit of a relationship between him and Taylor Heineke, but that has certainly flowed to Terry McLaurin and even Curtis Samuel to a point. So I hope Curtis Samuel pops for the league where you started him over Cole Kmet. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I am definitely picking the Eagles. I won't be surprised to see the Eagles drop 40 points tonight as long as the weather cooperates. I don't quite know what the weather is. I know the East Coast has been kind of hit or miss. But I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I think you're going to see a lot of touchdowns scored. So I think it's going to be a fun one to watch. But I am definitely thinking the Birds take down another one and keep this streak alive for you, Josh.
Love it.
Any parting words for our friends?
I do not know. Just, make sure you're hitting subscribe on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/Club Fantasy FFL. We've hit 480 subscribers. And I just want to say thank you to the spam bots avoiding us this morning because, oh my God, they came out in full force on Saturday. And that was a fucking shit show of a show on Saturday as a result.
Yeah. Never a good thing at all. Guys, if you're new to the show, we appreciate you for tuning in. We're always here to answer your questions. We do live shows every Wednesday night on top of this Monday show, every Wednesday night every Thursday night with focus on IDP. Every Saturday, we do a show where we just answer your lineup questions. So we have shows covering you. We have another wonderful, my favorite lineup question in the entire world. We do a quick little 15-minute show Thursday, the Sneaky Flex with the Sneaky Girls. If you're not familiar, Kelly and Phoenix does a great job with that show. Make sure you're checking it out. But it's easy. Just subscribe to the YouTube channel. You're going to get notifications every time we go live. We make sure we do we do invitations, essentially, where we put the show out ahead of time and you can see when we're going to go live. I don't know what words I'm looking for here. I'm very much struggling here.
We do have a new show that's launching tomorrow.
Son of a bitch.
So
I didn't even know this.
What we have been working towards for quite some time.
Oh my God. Yes, I did know this.
Officially announced it at the Fantasy Football Expo. We've touched on it a couple times. Our good friend Britt Flynn with Fantasy Alarm is going to be hosting Her Story in the Making. It's a co-production between Women of Fantasy Football and Fantasy Alarm. Britt's going to be interviewing a series of women that are kind of up and coming in this industry and essentially telling their stories. It's very similar to what we do with our Women of Fantasy shows, but what we want to focus on are the women that are still paving their roads and, climbing that ladder to ultimately get to where they want to be. And Britt's first guest tomorrow night at 8:30 Eastern. Women of Fantasy co-host Faith Enos.
Yeah, co-founder Faith Enos.
Co-founder, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, there's no better way to end the show on that. So make sure you're following Club Fantasy at Club Fantasy FFL on all the socials, but way more importantly, make sure you're following Women of Fantasy Football at women_of_FF. You'll be able to see all the great stuff we're trying to do to just kind of elevate women in this industry because they very much deserve it. So remember, defense wins championships, offense wins fantasy, and backup running backs are supposed to be more efficient. Have a great Monday.